Good morning, folks. Happy Friday. And I hope it's a good day for you all. Hope it will be a good day for me. I'm sure it'll be not a bad day for me, right enough. Anyway, folks, only one story in the press today, I'm afraid to say. Really, only one story in the press today. And you probably could guess what it is. Right, Okay, can I get Facebook on board? I thought we'd then update the algorithm, might let me get on with Facebook, but I'm afraid not. So let's have a quick look and see who's in this morning before we go anywhere and get on with this. We've got Spanner McTavish, Stephen Bankier, Aki's Mad, Kate Smith, Robert Wilson, Liz Shields, Jeanette Gilfillan, Indy Scott Bryan, Christina Mackey. Hi Christina, how are you in? We've got Mark, 1998, I think that is, Scotland. Hi Alistair. Morning Graham. Morning June. Sid. Eddie. Numbers are climbing nicely this morning, folks. Must be the bad weather outside. So let's get into this, shall we? Cindy Truck Davy out the truck and at home in his office in Salisbury, North Lanarkshire, where I always am these days because I work in the evenings. And it's not a great day, folks. It's overcast, clammy as hell, 19 degrees. That's the weather forecast here. That's the weather here in Salisbury, North Lanarkshire. You want to know what the weather's like where you are? Look at your own bloody windy. Now the other thing is, Lorna, naughty step, don't get to be late in this programme. And the other thing is the pollen count's high. Main allergen today is grass. Okay, so if like me, you're a hay fever sufferer, get your antihistamine down your heat. Okie dokie. Right, fit like the day, Alan. Yeah, it's no bad. No bad at all. Nay, too bad. Right, first up this morning we've got the newspaper, and as I say, there's a running theme here. There is only one story today, and most of the rags. So let's put the eye up. And the eye has British man walks away from crash that kills hundreds. And this is the story of the Boeing 787, which crashed just after takeoff in Ahmedabad. Let me try that again. Ahmedabad Airport in India. And it crashed into a housing estate or a residential area. And apparently only one man survived the flight, contrary to information we were getting yesterday. Just one man. And apparently he's from Leicester. So there you have it. That's the eye for you. Ah, shit. That was not what we wanted to do. Shut down the wrong fucking paper there. We'll just get rid of the star. We'll go back and get it shortly. Next up this morning, we have the fail, and it's running on the same story, folks. We'll put it up. As we do. I don't know how I'm alive. After at least 290 people killed, including 52 Britons, are killed in a horrifying Air India crash, stunned disbelief of Leicester man who's the sole survivor. And that's a picture of the man there. Okie dokie. As I say, only one story really in the papers today, folks. And that's going to make it pretty slow going this morning. But next up, we have The Guardian. Well, we should have The Guardian, but we'll know. We'll be here somewhere. There we go, The Guardian. At least 260 die as plane on way to UK crashes in India. And that's because the flight was heading for Gatwick Airport in the outskirts of London. Now, as I say, yesterday, when we were talking about this yesterday afternoon, the information we had at the time was that 201 people had died via a flight carrying 242 people. But of course, we didn't have information on the death toll of the people who lived in the building it crashed into either. But there seems to be a bit of dispute about how many people get killed. Previous publication says 290. This one says at least 260. So we still don't actually have confirmation on how many people perished in this air disaster. And it is a bloody shame. Imagine having flown all the way to see your relatives in India, you're heading back home, and it doesn't happen. Horrific. Absolutely horrific. Morning, class action. Next up, we have the Times, if I haven't shut the fucking thing down. Crash leaves sole survivor. And apparently Britain is to defy Trump and discuss Palestinian statehood at UN. That's not going to end well. Trump doesn't like being defied. I wonder if he'll send in the guard. There's enough of them here in this island to take a hostile takeover. No bother. So that's the Times for us this morning, folks. Apparently, the UK is about to disobey the US and actually bring up Palestinian statehood in the United Nations. Believe that when we see it. Next up, we have the Scum. And as you know, I don't put it up. And it's got Miracle Brit in seat 11A. Now, apparently that's the seat this guy was sat on the flight. For some reason, that particular place escaped the firebolt and the impact. The one seat that he was in. So if you've got to go on a Boeing, demand seat 11A. We're talking about Boeings. All the latest crashes that I've heard of all seem to be Boeing. They all seem to be Boeing flights. Maybe we want to look at their manufacturing process and put a wee bit more care into the construction. Right, the loony right wing rag, the Express, has, same story I'm afraid, and it is Britain's sole survivor of Air India plane crash that killed the other 241 on board. Miracle of man in seat 11A who walked away. And it is a bloody miracle. I'm not a religious man, but I'll have a cup of whatever he had in his breakfast for his breakfast that morning. Unbelievable. Maybe he'd Weetabix, that'll be what it is, eh? Right, we'll take down the loony rag. Next up's the Rancid. And as you know, we don't put the Rancid up. Brits a miracle. Nearly 300 killed in Boeing jet crash. Seconds after flight takes off. Passenger sat in 11A walks away from wreckage. Pretty accurate. Pretty accurate. I wonder how the guy feels today. They tell me sometimes sole survivors feel an awful lot of guilt for surviving. The emergency exit's right next to it. Is it Alistair? I wouldn't know. I don't pay much attention to these things when I get on a plane. I expect the driver to know what he's fucking doing. Sorry, pilot. But thanks very much, Alistair. Yeah. There's a reason why I don't fly often, I don't go on trains often, and I don't get on boats often, because I'm no fucking driving. Although I was going to take flying lessons, but Sarah's not having it. I could get a wee course there at Cumbernauld Airport, and I really want to have a go. I can afford it, but Sarah's not having it. She says no. Boeing has had 37 crashes in 10 years. Airbus has had 0 crashes. I'll mind and go on an Airbus class action. Okay, wait, you go for us. Saturday the 14th, 2 p.m. against Trump, Edinburgh. I'm afraid I can't do that, unfortunately. An anti-Trump protest in Edinburgh, I don't see why not. And Shuggy, what you got? Funds for the food bank, thanks very much, Hugh. One of our kind moderators there. Right, where were we? What rag was that? Oh, we're talking about Rancid, weren't we? Right, next up's the Telegraph. And the Telegraph has the miracle of seat 11A. To say, if you're ever going to go into a Boeing, find seat 11A, eject whoever the fuck it is that's sitting there, and take a pew. Shouldn't laugh about a disaster like that. But Boeing's safety record over the last wee while, as class actions just put up, is absolutely bloody atrocious. If that had been the used car market, if that had been the car market and there'd been that many crashes, they'd be like Tesla right now, almost out the fucking game. But Tesla crap, and it turns out Boeing's crap. So if you're ever in a position to buy a plane, avoid Boeing. That's my advice. So if you're ever going to buy a plane, don't buy a Boeing. Right. Next up, we'll get the Herald. I think this is one of the ones with a different headline today. Swinney's leadership failure over bonuses. Now, apparently John has been criticising public sector wages and bonuses. But he's being criticised here for having to sign off on contract agreements that were made before he was First Minister. And in the contract agreements, apparently the board at Scottish Water have performance-related bonuses. So John might not like these performance-related bonuses, but it is in the contract of the people on the board of Scottish Water that they get performance-related bonuses. So he might not like it. He either changes their contract or he signs off on it. It appears he's signing off on it. But me personally, I wouldn't have given them such a contract. I'd have said, this is what you're getting, fixed wage. Problem with that is, any expert in water supply would end up in England, where they would get bonuses. So if you want to keep the best, you have to pay the same as the rest. Simple as that. No, it really is that simple. Right, next up's the Scotsman, I believe. We'll stick it up. And it looks like I shut the National down, so we're going to have to go and get it. The Scotsman has tragedy of Air India Flight 171. That's it. British man is only survivor, apparently. And Ahmedabad as 241 on plane die when it hits medical centre. Fuck, it was a medical centre. Oh dear. Kumar Ramesh, age 40, is the name of the survivor. As I say, he's from Leicester. But absolute tragedy. And I mean that, an absolute tragedy. Take that one down. Take that one down. We need to go and get the next one. And that's the National. But it'll not take me long to get it. I still have it here. 2 seconds, folks. I'll run down the paper review and grab the National. And it's no leading on the aircraft disaster. So here you have it. What's the national got for us today? Exclusive SNP hit out at 2.5 billion raid on GB energy funding. What fucking funding? There's no funding for GB energy. It's a fucking fallacy, a fantasy. Ugh. Nonsense. Top Scottish think tank warns of lack of transparency. And that's got to do with a human rights review that the Scottish government said that they would produce 4 months ago. Apparently they haven't produced that human rights review fast enough for this top Scottish think tank. And you would think that was the same headline as steep cuts on way from Labour, top Scottish think tank, but that's not it at all. As I say, the Scottish think tank story is a different story, and its own lack of transparency, apparently our review into human rights. Main headline, steep cuts on way from Labour. We know, we've seen the bloody spending review. We crunched the numbers. We realised that she was talking pish. And then the following day she's on the telly apologising because none of it will make any sense because her economic forecast was blown right out the fucking window with a further contraction of 0.3% in the UK's GDP. And people are still talking about this spending review when it only actually was viable for a full 24 hours. Less actually, because when she made the statement, she already knew the numbers. She already knew the economy had shrunk, and she already knew the numbers the civil service had put together were bollocks. But they were always bollocks. The same as the last spending review in 2021. All the spending reviews I've seen in my lifetime, and there's been a few, nobody has ever spent the fucking money or carried out the commitments that they made in their spending reviews. Because they're all pie in the fucking sky. An exclusive interview with Mary McCallum, on leadership aspirations and taking on housing emergency. At this point in time, I'd take anybody except for fucking John. And Brian Cox calls for yes unity as he says everything about England with Starmer. I would like to correct Brian Cox there. I would say everything's about fucking Israel and genocide with Starmer. Nice tasty bit of information came out yesterday. The two ministers that were sanctioned by the UK government, one of them is their finance minister and the other one is their defence secretary. And we're spending £200,000 a year defending the Israeli arms factory, Pearson's, in the Newcastle area. So if they were sanctioning the guy who's in charge, by the way, if you look up Pearson's own company house, it will tell you that the Israeli a defence minister is the sole director. So if they're freezing the assets, they should be shutting that fucking plant down of this particular guy because he's listed as the director of Pearson's. Gallant, I think his name is. I'm still sharing that. Alistair, thank you very much. This will be Daily Blasés, Friday Frolics at 5 PM today. And Alistair has given you the link. And folks, tune in. It's really good fun. It really is. It's still political, slightly, but it's ripping the fish big style. So it's really good. Right, so that was the National. That only leaves one publication to find, and that's the Star. And I'm not sure it did by mistake, so I'll just go and nab it. Oh, up the way. There we go. Open that up. And Star has. Unfortunately, it's not boffin again. Brit survives Indian plane crash horror, miracle of seat 11A. And as I've already said, folks, if you're going to go on a bloody plane and it's a Boeing, get yourself into seat 11A. You might get a chance of surviving. You might get a chance of surviving. Right. So, not much news in the newspapers today to talk about. I'm afraid. The plane crash yesterday, the tragedy in India, of course, was relevant to people in these islands because of the cross population. So apparently 50 odd people who were resident on this lump of rock. Don't know whereabouts in this lump of rock, but apparently 50 odd of them perished in that flight. But as I say, due to the colonial past, there's a huge amount of Indian, Pakistani people live here on this rock. And rightly so. And they're welcome. In fact, I'm glad they're here. Didn't have made a big difference to our culinary experiences on this island, that's for sure. Mad Monk, you know what they say. If it's a Boeing, I'm not going. Fair enough. That's actually no bad, Shuggy. Got a couple of memes out with that on social media, you do well. So you will. If it's a Boeing, I'm not going. So, you actually wonder what the condition of a C-11A looks like. I wonder if it's in a reinforced cage. Something for the boffins. I'll send it straight to the Star's editorial a director and tell him we want more boffins. And here's a wee bribe for Peter. Yeah. We'll go on to the Star in a minute. Pass the bribe on, Peter. Tell him we want more boffins in the headlines. Right, that's it for this week. It's been a lot of fun. Been a lot of nonsense. But I say that at the end of every week. There's been a lot of nonsense in the press, because there has. And apparently nobody cares for your tribe. I don't eat tripe, so it can't be my tribe, Chris. In fact, I don't eat offal at all. Anyway, it's been a good week for the news. Good week for nonsense in the newspapers. And no doubt the next week will be the same. So, you guys, look after yourself. Have a nice weekend. Thank you all very much for your contributions this week to the Food Bank Fund. Thanks to the moderators for moderating. Thanks for tuning in in such great numbers as usual. And we'll see you on Monday morning, unless something absolutely phenomenal happens over the weekend and I need to put something up about it. I might, depending on how it goes tomorrow, have a wee look at the protests in America. And if there's anything interesting, I might even draft over and say hello. It was the me, Chris. No, it was the me, because I don't eat tripe. Anyway, you guys, see you Monday. Don't be late, or you'll be on the bloody naughty step.